Hi, I'm Steve Gompertz of QRx Partners, and welcome to this week's Quality Heretic. We're going to focus on something that is kind of one of the more fun terms, I think, in quality, and that is, whoops, where is it? There it is, death by CAPA. I think most people have heard this term before. I didn't make this one up. I've just always liked this one. I actually think it might have been Kim Troutman when she was with the FDA, came up with this term. But it refers to overdoing CAPAs and using CAPA too much. Now, in a previous Quality Heretic, I talked about wanting to move away from the term CAPA because it implies that corrective action and preventive action are a single process when they're two separate processes. But for today, we're gonna use the term CAPA because it's just convenient. I get it. That's going to make it hard to get it out of our vocabulary. Um, but what we're talking about is kind of that full-blown process that everybody has with, do a problem definition, do a deep dive into investigation, right? Multi, uh, you know, functional team gets involved, and it's just got to figure everything out down to root cause and do all kinds of analysis and testing. And right, it just takes a lot of time and effort, and you got to come up with then your corrective actions and implement them and prove that they were effective. And that takes time, right? And then capture the data so they can be fed back into management review and communicated, all that stuff. That's the formal CAPA process. The term refers to that it was never intended to be used for every nonconformance that goes on in your quality system. There are different sizes, let's say, of NCs, right, for nonconformance. I talked in a previous episode about the concept of risk-based approach or risk-based thinking. And that applies here to how much effort do you need to put into each type of nonconformance you encounter. The answer is not always open a CAPA, but I see this in a lot of quality systems. Get an audit finding, open a CAPA. Get a complaint, open a CAPA. It just gets crazy. Any NC, oh, we dropped something on the floor in the production area, open a CAPA. And it was never meant to be for everything, right? Because a lot of things go wrong, in the average day within your quality system. And so it's a little crazy to think that you would go through this huge exercise of analysis and investigation and work just because of some sort of minor error. Now, this is sort of the key. It's in there. It's not like you can't figure it out by reading the standard. If you go into ISO 1345, first off, the term corrective action appears 14 times throughout the document. Okay, not counting the annexes at the end where they talk about the differences in the version to the last version. So corrective action is an important concept, obviously, for your QMS, right? You've got to do something to prevent recurrence, right? And let's remember this is different than preventive action. Preventive action is, figuring out things that could go wrong but haven't gone wrong. And so how do we head that off so that it can't occur in the first place? Corrective action is the response to something's already gone wrong. What can we do to make sure it can't happen again? But in clause 852, the section on corrective actions, there is this phrase, corrective actions shall be proportionate to the effects of the nonconformities encountered. Okay, shall be proportionate to. Remember last time we talked about risk-based approaches, if that's your sign to think risk-based. Okay, risk-based thinking. But what they're telling you right there is it's not a one-size-fits-all. The actions you take are proportionate to the risks related to whatever happened. And that's the key. So that doesn't mean open a full-blown, got to fill out the CAPA form and take it to your CAPA board and all that stuff. That's not what they're saying. They're saying your process should know how to scale accordingly to what happened so that you don't overdo it. And if you look again, at the clause where it says the organization will document a procedure to define requirements for risk, so you have to have a procedure that covers this. And the first piece in there is reviewing nonconformities. And so this is where they're talking about the data, trending, monitoring, that it's not a reaction to each single event, but watching all of them, right? And figuring out what are the trends. And then jumping ahead to, subclause C, and then evaluating the need for action to ensure that nonconformities do not recur. Evaluating the need for action, which implies that no action is an option, okay? Or very little action is an option. They're telling you right in the standard, you are allowed to pick a scale of effort here, that it's not all hands on deck, drop everything, we've got to do a full-blown CAPA. My rule of thumb when I'm putting in CAPA processes is to approach it this way: that a formal CAPA, what we think of with the forms and the CAPA board, is only required if one of the following things are true. Either that single occurrence of an NC represents an unacceptable risk, right? Something really bad happened. The fact that it happened once is enough. Okay. But if that's not the case, the next question is this likely to be systemic? Okay. Because if it's systemic, right, all right, this is one indicator of something that looks like it could happen again, either in the same place, somewhere else, in a different geography, or whatever, right? It is systemic in nature. So, yes, we probably want to do a deeper dive into this. Or if that's not the case, it does look so it's low risk and it's localized. The last question is a preventable cause not obvious? Because even though it was low risk and it only happened this one time and it doesn't look likely to repeat, if I don't have a good understanding what to do about it, then yeah, I probably want to do a deeper dive as well. But that should be it. Other than that, everything else should just be, we're going to record the NC, we're going to make it part of our monitoring, right? Part of that data analysis piece that comes towards the end of the standard. And we're going to monitor and see, where do the trends go? We will, don't forget, you can always do, if possible, apply and record corrections to return whatever was non-conforming back to a conforming state. But this is the case where you go, this looks like a one-off low risk event, and it looks pretty obvious what we have to do to make sure it doesn't happen again. So we don't need to alert our CAPA board and go through all these other gyrations. I will say this: I'll probably do a video on this at some point about, right. Hopefully, everybody knows, right. User error is never the right root cause. It's never a valid root cause. But this may be the one case where you go, yeah, you know what? It was user error, and maybe in this case it was so minimal, so localized. The corrective action is we did retrain that person, right? Because the rest of the criteria was not meant to trigger anything bigger than that. That might be the one time, right? If you apply this kind of thinking where you could allow that, again, don't make it a habit. But again, just understand these processes are designed to allow you the opportunity to scale your response to everything. So, as always, let's see your comments and let's get some good discussion going. And we'll see you next week.